What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the SchuZ Show. I'm your host, SchuZ Schumaker. I hope you guys had an incredible weekend. With that being said, on today's show, I've got a very special guest joining me. He's a man with an 11-0 record with 3 KOs. He's recently now been named the BBFC English Cruiserweight Champion. He goes by the nickname The Gentleman. That's none other than John Hedges. John, I appreciate you for taking time to come on today, man.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, no, it means a lot. And from
Absolutely.
one country to another, I suppose.
Absolutely, man. So, this was not a question I had intended up until I woke up this morning. I saw the news, but, your trainer is going to get back into the ring now in the very near future. December just got announced. So I have to ask you, you know him quite well. What's your thoughts on Ricky Hatton coming out of retirement to return to the ring?
Yeah, do you know, it was a bit of a surprise to me as well, to be fair. So I was back in the gym Friday, and that was like the first time he announced it to us. But yeah, I don't normally like ex-fighters coming back into boxing. But in this case, the opponent is perfect. I don't believe no one's going to get hurt, either of them, because they're both past their best. But
Right.
Ricky's still got plenty left in the tank, so I'd put him as a big favourite. And it's just another bit of his journey. Like you say, he retired at I believe he said he retired at like 32, so he
Right.
wasn't old. Um, and yeah, he's going to go back in there and get another W.
You just said the fact that you knew before everyone else to back about on Friday. So he comes out, you're working out together, and he says, "Hey, I'm going to fight again." What goes through your mind at that point in time?
Yeah, it's well, I kind of thought he was joking. To be fair,
Right.
he's a real funny man. So like, he's always cracking jokes.
Mhm.
But yeah, when he said it, it was just like, nah, no way, no way. And yeah, it it's happening. Do you know what I mean? It's happening in Saudi Arabia, Dubai,
Dubai,
um,
yep.
and yeah, it's gonna be massive, isn't it?
Now, you said one other thing I do want to kind of follow up on. You said the aspect that you're not a big fan of old fighters, coming back into fighting again. And obviously, this one's a little bit different. Two older guys going back in the ring. But, we do have something happening now in just a little bit under 2 weeks now. Manny Pacquiao coming back out of retirement. When you see a situation like that, when guys have accomplished so much and they're going to go fight at a world stage like that, what goes through your mind and why are you so much in the, and I kind of have the stance of saying, you know what, I think they should kind of stay retired?
I I think it's a bit different to what Ricky's doing compared to Manny. So
Yeah.
Manny's jumping straight back in at a high level after being at the ring so many years,
Hmm.
and I don't think that is right, because at the end of the day, you've got to get no. It doesn't matter about doing your runs and your training and getting through that. Okay, you've got to be able to get in there with a young man and
Right.
stand there and fight fire with fire without gassing, without the age playing a part. So
Hmm.
going back in at a highest level, I don't understand, because I think the odds are so far against you. You got so
Right.
much pressure because you had such a great career prior to it, um, and it's completely different for Ricky. If I'm honest, I believe the opponent Ricky's got is perfect.
Agreed.
It would be like a warm up fight if he was getting back into serious fighting. So I think Ricky's going to do a proper job on him. But at the end of the day, the man's there. He's got a lot of pride. He's from Dubai. There's going to be millions of people, I imagine, cheering him on. So anything can happen. There's still pressure on Rick, but it's the
Right.
correct opponent for the correct time.
100% agree. Well, John, let's get into your career and your journey because I want to get into that aspect for yourself. And the original initial question I was going to ask you is, you are the BBFC English Cruiserweight title champion now. You have that around your waist. What does that feel like?
Yeah, mate, it's brilliant, if I'm honest. As an amateur, I won the English title. I won the Great Britain title as an amateur as well. So
Mhm.
to win the English as a professional fighter, it's massive, especially with how hard the talent is in England.
Right.
To be the champion of it, it's a big deal for myself, and I'm very proud to hold it.
You're not an old guy. You're 23 years old. To already have that accomplishment underneath your belt, I know there's so many more things you want to accomplish in your career. And hopefully, I know, 5, 10 years down the road, this would just look like a fun little moment you had. But knowing that you've accomplished this young on, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it was like it's a step on the journey, but ultimately, I think the English title was always something I had to win to like for my own self. If I was going to become a professional fighter, I have to win in English. That was the bare minimum for me. So I believe I've reached the bare minimum, if you get what I mean. But
Right.
it's still like where I had to get us. So the pressure come off a little bit. And I've got two titles. I won the Southern Area prior, and then I won the English.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm buzzing. I'm in probably a better position than I would ever dreamed of being in. So
All right.
I'm a happy man.
Let's break down that fight. Go up against Nathan Corliss, and obviously have a great performance in that fight. Can you take us through it now that you've had time to dissect it, reflect on the fight? What's some of the things you feel like you learned from the fight, you grew in, you were able to improve on? Because overall, what's your evaluation of that fight?
I think it was obviously I joined a new team in Ricky Hatton and Blaine Eunice. I left my old trainer, so I only had 5 weeks with them. So it was always going to be one of them fights where I didn't want to do too much and overstep. I just wanted to box what I do best
Right.
and stick to the basics really, which I believe I did. And I
Mhm.
was speaking to Eddie Hearn after, and he said, ultimately, I've won 11 fights now as a pro, and I haven't really got out of second gear. No disrespect to my opponents, but I feel like I've just coasted, which is a good thing. And maybe that fight I coasted a little bit too much. I felt like I was 7, 8 rounds up on the scorecards, so
Right.
I just kind of went through the motions. But it was nice. I had a good win, won the English, no injuries, and we roll into another.
You talk about the fact that you obviously moved a different training group now. You're obviously out there in Manchester with Ricky Hatton, as we talked about already. What led to this transition? Why did you feel like, heading into the new year at this stage of your career, it's time to find a new, different opportunity? Why'd you make that change?
Uh, I think more than anything, there was a little bit of politics behind the scenes with my old trainer and the
Mm,
training camp I was in. Nothing too deep. It was just I felt like I weren't getting the attention I needed, and I knew to get to that next level, I've got to dedicate myself. I've got to commit my whole life to it.
mm,
So maybe where I was living before with my family and in the area I've grown up with, it maybe was too comfortable and too easy. So yeah, Ricky Hatton, the legend. The no more needs to be said. When you say boxing, you say Ricky Hatton,
right.
and it was, I just feel like it was God's plan, and it was where He put me, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like it weren't like I made the decision to go to Him. It was just things didn't weren't working, and then that door opened, so we moved into it.
When you talk about the future now, because as you said, this past training camp, it was just your very first fight with that group. Your very first time, only had 5 weeks with them before the fight. Now, when you look at your upcoming fights going forward, what's the plan that Ricky has for you? Like, where does he see yourself reaching? What's the heights and where does he see yourself going?
I think Ricky's main thing is there's no rush. However, I've already kind of progressed as kind of a prospect. I'm now more of a challenger slash champion. So
Right.
the bigger fights are going to come ultimately because we're winning titles. So it's not a bad thing. However, I am only 23. So we've got to keep it in mind when taking certain fights. But I've kind of said if the money's right and the opponent's right where it's a hard fight but it's winnable, then I'm taking
Mhm.
every fight. I'm not going to walk in against a Jai Opataya, someone like that. I'm not ready for them yet. But
Yeah.
if the money's right and you want to drop down a couple of levels from Jai, let's do it. Long as I've got a 20% fighting chance, I'm in every fight.
I like that mindset. Some guys obviously just say they want the money or whatever right away. You're looking at the long game for yourself. And obviously, I know in the back of your mind, you want to accomplish as much as possible. And obviously, it might be difficult to be patient sometimes. But what's instead of that? Why do you feel comfortable saying, you know what? I know I'm 23. I want to accomplish big things, but I'm willing to be patient, kind of play the long game out.
I think I've got a good family behind me. I've got a good wife,
Right.
and they all understand boxing. So for me, it's not like no false egos. No one's telling me I'm better than what I am. They all hit me with the truth, and that's what I think you need around you. You need people who what's they're honest. If
Right.
you're good, you're good. You're bad, you're bad. So with the whole Russian, we've all kind of said I'm in boxing to secure a future.
Hmm.
If the money's right, you're potentially going to look at every fight. However, it's got to weigh up. Do you know what I mean? Like we were saying
Right.
with Ricky, the pros and cons. It's got to make sense, and that's the position we're in. So hopefully, he can get an international title next fight, and it'll give me a world ranking. As soon as I get the world ranking, the world's my oyster. We'll see what's coming up.
All right. So that was what I was going to ask you then. First and foremost, though, when you talk about upcoming fights, when can we see you back in the ring? Is there a certain timeline you're hoping to get back in there?
October. So I spoke to Eddie a couple of days ago at the
Okay.
boxing, and he says October. So listening to this to the boss man, it's looking like October.
All right. And then kind of following up too on that aspect of what you're going to do going forward. When you look at yourself 23 years old, is that upcoming 5 to matches more so just title defense and getting yourself into ranking position? But when do you see yourself making that big jump? Do you feel like you're still maybe a year away, year and a half from being a guy that's fighting, top 10, top 15 type of ranked guys?
I want to be my goal as a boxer might be different to a lot, but I've always wanted to be a prize fighter. I don't care about winning or losing. Obviously, we're in the sport to win.
Right.
However, I want to be in big fights. I want to be a household name,
Mm,
and I'm not in a big heavy way, but I'm not scared of no one. The bigger the challenge, the best performance I believe I'll find. So
mm,
I just want to. I've got to be careful. I've got to be smart, and I've got to be in the right fights at the right time. But if I was to say a timeline, I'd probably say a British champion by 2027 latest.
okay. All right. I like what you said right there. So many guys, and I do think a lot of the blame is put on Floyd Mayweather, rightfully so, that the 15-0, all this different stuff has such a big influence on guys, especially out here in America at least. But for yourself, you talk about saying, you know what, I might lose some fights in this my career, but I want to make sure I'm making the best fights possible, not just stat padding my overall record. When you talk about that mindset you're bringing to boxing, already establishing that 23 is huge. Why is that your mentality?
I think more than anything, there's more to life than just boxing. And as the saying goes, I aspire to inspire. No, I inspire to aspire.
Right.
Um, and it's the truth. If I could be a role model more than I could be a celebrity, then I'm doing the right thing. And that's
Mm,
what I believe that sort of boxing mentality gets you. If you're not
right.
trying to pad your record and trying to just kind of being fake to the public just to make yourself look the best. Ultimately, you've got to fight the best, and that's sort of mentality I have. If I'm not good enough, it's not the end of the world. As long as I've tried my best, gave myself the best chance, committed to it, then so be it. And like you say, there's so much more life than boxing. I have to remind people that sometimes because they think John Hedges, the boxer, is that's it. But
Right.
there's a lot more.
I just have to ask you then, post boxing, I know obviously it's a long way down the road for yourself, but is there other things you have a inspiration for, you kind of like to do outside of boxing?
Yeah, I'm just a family man if I'm honest. I
Okay.
love a holiday, like enjoying the sun. Unfortunately, England ain't the best place for that, but um, but yeah, I'm pretty relaxed. I'm not too lively for my age actually. I'm probably a bit above my years, but
Right.
it's more just like I enjoy coaching. I do a few personal training to a few young boxers, and I enjoy that. And I think that's a great way to make a living after fighting. So I've got a lot of years left in the sport, but I'd never be one of the ones to rely on the sport. It's gave me a great career, and I believe it's going to bring me an even better future. But
Okay.
I'm never all eggs in one basket.
I love that. When you top of the cruiserweight division, if you were in America, you'd be in a little bit of trouble because not a lot of great competition. The American have cruiserweight divisions. It's rough to say the least. I think obviously the biggest name is Jake Paul, and that's a whole nother discussion. But you look out there in the UK, Vidal Riley, Alois Jr. You have so many guys. Even we're talking about guys at top ranked contenders right now. Chris Billum Smith. You have
Yeah.
Jack Macy. You have so many guys. Like there is guys that you can make big fights domestically out there. That has to be a big luxury for yourself. So when I list just some of those guys, I'm even missing some of them as well. Are there any guys? Pat Brown, you could throw in there as well. When you look at these guys, are there guys that you want to fight that you look excited or you're intrigued to fight down the road?
Yeah, I think we're all kind of we all know each other roughly from the amateur background.
Right.
So I think it's one of them ones we're all in the same boat. We all can fight. No one's got bad blood with any of each other.
Hmm.
Um, and it's let the money make sense, let the title make sense, and we'll all fight each other. None of us,
Right.
I think I speak for them all by saying none of them fear me as much as I don't feel them. So
Mm.
it's one of them ones. I think we're all smart. We know our worth, and we know when that fight should happen. But I guarantee in the future you'll see myself, Alois, Vidal, Jack Massey, Pat, all fighting each other. Because that's the art of the sport, and we're all game.
When you do have the opportunity, as I said, if you're in America, you don't have a lot of those big domestic fights to make in that weight class. But when you know that, I'm sure you guys won't fight each other the next year or so. But when you talk about, down the road when you're in your prime competing and you have so many big fights that you can do at home, how much more exciting does that make it?
It's unbelievable if I'm honest, because like I say about the whole household name, um, we like O2 Arena. I've been lucky enough to fight there 5, 6 times. That
Right.
holds just over 18,000. I was on anti-Joshua undercard, and it was sold out. It's
Mhm.
unbelievable. You sell Wembley out, that's 90,000. So there's so many stadiums that them sort of fights can bring a big crowd. And like, for example, Alois and Vidal, they're from London. I'm from Essex. It's 30-minute drive. So fans from both ends are going to click on for them fights. So yeah, definitely. I think it's so easy to make them fights, but we all know are worth.
When you look at the list I just gave you, I know Lucas Rueg, also he's another guy I could throw in there as well. But when you look at some of these guys, is there one in particular that you look at? I mean, I think when you talk about, the matchroom connection, Pat Brown obviously seems like a lot of sense that we could see that one in the future. But is there one that you're eyeing that you would say is more intriguing than the others to you?
Do you know what? Like, I get this a lot. I don't call fighters out because
All right.
it's just not me. But I think it's one of them ones. Look, that fight is gonna happen most probably because we're both for the same promotions. But
Right.
no one knows what the future holds, right? So I'm a few fights ahead of Pat. I might be fighting for a British next, and I might go on to bigger things straight away, or I might get beat. So
Right.
ultimately, it's like them fights are all there to be took. And
Makes
like I
sense.
say, what's exciting about the cruiserweight division in England? Every fighter is, I'd say, fearless. That we all want a piece of each other, and I think that's a great attitude. There's no ducking and diving. Um, we all just want to listen, earn a living, do good for
Right.
ourselves, and be in big fights. So it's a great time because I believe there's no reason why we can't all fight each other. Win, lose or
Yeah.
draw, I think we can all be in the mix. So yeah, it's a great time to be in the cruiserweight division.
I want to pick your mind on a couple different cruiserweight topics right now. One of which is I know this is going back domestically for yourself, and I know one fight I really want to see, but Riley Lois Jr. I know that's been rumored for some reason. It's not seeming to get made at this point in time. I don't know why. If that fight were to get booked, and hopefully it does, who do you think would win that fight?
It's a great fight.
Yeah,
Vidal's a better boxer, and
good point.
Aloy is more powerful. So,
Powerful.
and they're facts. So, I, it's hard to call. Like, I'll be honest with you, if the Vidal Riley fight was offered to me right now, like I'm the English champion, he's the British champion, I would jump at it. So,
Hmm.
I think I speak for Aloy's in the sense of we both want the British title, and we're both trying to get it. Do you know what I mean? Um, it's just one of them ones. I'm not saying Vidal's ducking anybody because, like I say, it's a financial game, and
Right.
you've got to earn out of it. And we maybe not be bringing the numbers in what he needs, but it's a great fight. I'd probably say right now Vidal could possibly beat Alois due to experience, but
Right.
it's a 50-50 fight.
You said that you would even be willing to take that fight right now. Obviously, that might not be the case or whatnot, but would we possibly see that fight? Is there a chance that we even see that fight happening in this calendar year or early next year?
Well, if, like I say, if it was offered to me, and everyone knows how I feel about this, the British title I've dreamed of since a baby, and I'll
Yeah.
fight anybody for it. So Vidal's just an opponent, if I'm honest with you. There's no disrespect to him, but the way I see it, I'm the English champion. Vidal won the English and then boxed for the British. So give me my chance. I've won the English. Let me fight for the British.
I love it. Another one is someone else you already mentioned as well, and this is, in my opinion, we look at the cruiserweight division. I think there's two top guys, Jabatai Zerto. I feel like that's the fight that needs to get made, and it's a shame it hasn't been made yet, in my opinion.
Yeah.
If that fight gets done, which I feel like we all as boxing fans just want to see it happen, who do you think wins it?
Right. I this probably people are going to hate me for saying this because I feel there's a lot of off fans, and I'm one of them. I think he's a
Mhm.
great southpaw. He does everything right. He's he's aggressive. He's a good boxer. He's got it all. But I've always thought Zerdo is just another level of a fighter in the sense of even when he fought Crispin and Smith, Chris looks like an absolute animal at cruiserweight. He's shredded. He's big. He's strong.
Yeah,
Zerbo comes in with a little bit of fat on him, and everyone kind of writes him off. But his technicality and his boxing ability is unbelievable.
right.
So that that fight, if John tries to win, it happens inside 6 rounds. If Zerbo wins, it goes the distance.
All right, I like that. The other one I have to just ask you about is the Jake Paul situation. There's a lot of controversy. They're going to go meet out there. And the reason I want to ask you is you are a guy that obviously might be a fight or two away from getting your name into the rankings, but that is a situation where the big debate is saying, okay, he just gets thrown in there. Someone's name is obviously being taken out that he probably does not deserve to be in that group. When you are fighting the cruiserweight division and you see something like this happen, what goes through your mind?
It is what it is. Like, I try not to bite on it. Jake Paul's a great businessman, and
That's for
I
sure.
genuinely believe everyone could learn from him. Um, and people don't always like hearing that, but Jake's got himself there. No one's done it for him, whether it be through YouTube or whatever he
Hmm.
was doing beforehand. He's put himself there, and at the end of the day, he's winning. So we can't, in my opinion, you can't really disrespect what he's doing. I don't like
Agreed.
it because I'm an old school boxing fan and I do believe it is changing the sport. But money talks. He's getting plenty of money in his pocket, so he's it's one of them ones that it's fair play to him. That's all I can say. But if he steps up to anyone top top 40 cruiserweights, light
Mhm.
heavyweights, he's getting beat.
All right. I do like what you said. That's honestly exactly how I believe about it too. Is the fact of the matter is that he is incredible at business. He does bring in a lot of money to the sport. And when you do recognize that aspect of saying, you know what, obviously the ranking is very debatable there, but the aspect is of how much he's bringing into boxing overall. Do you feel like his presence in boxing is probably the proper way to put it?
Yeah.
Is that overall good for the sport and specifically even the cruiserweight division?
It's bringing more eyes on the sport, like in
Yeah.
in my opinion. So the more eyes, the better the chance we have for bigger sponsorship.
Yeah.
And let's be honest, if Jake Paul was fighting in London right now, it would sell out within seconds.
Yeah.
If Chris Billum Smith, a world number two, was fighting in his home country at London, it would struggle to sell. It would struggle
Mhm.
to fill half, and that's the brutal reality. Someone in their own home can't sell an arena out. However, an American YouTuber can come over and sell arenas. So I feel like it's kind of like congratulations to Jake. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like I say, I think we can all learn from it. The boxing aspect, given the rankings, I probably don't agree with it, if I'm honest. But
Yeah.
I get why they're doing it because the higher he is, the easier it is to make fights and the more money and more eyes in the sport. I believe actually Tommy Fury is ranked above me at the moment, which is
Yeah.
absolutely mental. Um, yeah, that's the one person I'll call out, Tommy Fury. If he wants to have a go, he'll have it.
I was gonna say like, when I was going through the cruiserweight rankings, to exactly get the exact names. I think he is number 8. I believe you're number 10 on BoxRec right now. Might have been 10 or 11, something like that. What's your thoughts on that aspect then? Because Tommy Fury, I mean, he hasn't even been that active. I know he did fight just
Yeah.
recently, but it kind of seems bizarre throwing him up there. What's your thoughts on that situation?
I think it's that's the only one I do not understand. I don't understand how Boxrec have ranked that. I'm guessing because Jake Paul's highly ranked and Tommy beat Jake. I'm
Yeah,
guessing that's where they're getting it from. But yeah, it's crazy, absolutely mad. Like that's not disrespectfully, but I don't even think it should be probably number 30 or 40 on that list. And it can have a fight, but he ain't. Yeah, there's levels to boxing.
if we're gonna be honest in terms of these ranking groups right now, I think Jake Paul, Tommy Fury, we could see that rematch would make the most hypothetical sense. If the guy, whoever wins that fight, could go and fight someone bigger, if you really want to make that fight happen, who would possibly win that fight? I know Jake obviously lost the first time around. I think he has improved overall, but who would hypothetically win that fight if it does get made?
I think now you, probably Jake, just through
All right.
activeness. Like if you're not fighting, you're not improving, and you get a lot of ring rust, and it all
Yeah.
depends. Personally, Tommy should beat Jake. He comes from a fighting family.
Good
He's
point.
been in a boxing gym all his life. It's a sport which is his sport. It's not like he hasn't done it. He's done it since a baby. So it should be a lot easier for Tommy to get ready for it. But it's lifestyle, and I believe Jake is a credit to his lifestyle, he dedicates his life to it.
Absolutely. Well, I want to get into your story as well, John. I want people to get to know who you are and how you've gotten to the place you're at today. And so, if we head all the way back, though, you've grown up in the UK, West Ham. I know that's part of the boxing club you joined when you were 6 years old. So let's go all the way back to that point. You've been in the sport for a minute now. What's it been like, and how did you get introduced to the sport at such a young age?
Family, if I'm honest with you. So my dad used to box, and
Right.
then my brother. It was more my brother. So even West Ham Boxing Club, I didn't really do a lot of training there. It was just more I went down there, watched my brother train. Um, our family, our schedule was with school or without, it was literally Monday, get off a school bus, straight to the gym. Tuesday,
Mm.
get off a school bus, straight to the gym. And that was our life. So I feel like I didn't really choose boxing. I was forced into it, but it was a blessing in disguise. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
My brother retired at 18. He didn't turn professional. And my dad was undefeated, but didn't have a load of fights. So it was just a complete fighting family. Like the talk at the dinner table is boxing, talk at breakfast table is boxing. It's
Mm.
eat, sleep, and boxing. So it's yeah, I think it's a blessing because I enjoy fighting as much as it is my job.
You said you were, in a sense, forced into boxing, and I have to imagine that at some point in your career, it kind of shifted to something that you actually enjoy, you actually love doing. When did that happen? When did you feel like, this is actually my calling, this is what I want to go out there and pursue?
Um, do you know what? As an amateur, it was always like I was a very successful amateur, and it got me my deal with Eddie Hearn. But I
Right.
think it was I boxed for England. If I'm honest, my first time fighting for Team England and fighting internationally was all for my dad. Like it was, I didn't really want to box. It was just
Mm.
I was winning titles and it was making me family proud. So, and then I think as I realised I got to about 15 and I still weren't really enjoying it, but I'm still winning. Then it kind of just clicked. Like I can either enjoy this and do it, or not enjoy it and you're still doing it. So I kind of just said to myself, I'm not going to be like these other people who have a great amateur career and then finish and look back at their career and have nothing to show for it other than a trophy. So I
Mhm.
made the decision, and it was nothing to do with my family. I said I wanted to turn professional quite young, and they were all like, "Oh, I don't know if you're ready. You're only 17 at the time." And I went, "Yeah, well, it was kind of during the time of COVID." I said,
Yeah.
I'm gonna have a go." And yeah, it was. I got picked for the World Games in Montenegro, and COVID hit. That got cancelled, and I was like, right, if I don't carry this on, I'm going to retire because I knew mentally I didn't really want to do it. It was just I was
Right.
good at it, and then as soon as I turned professional, it became a new direction. I loved it. I was doing it
Mm.
all for myself. I was training harder. I just enjoyed it. I actually felt like I was making myself proud, and yeah, like I say, from there it just took off.
That's a huge thing you talk about. Then I actually like to ask a lot of guys about that transition from amateur to pros, and a lot of guys that become successful pros. Obviously, some guys have good amateur careers, some don't. It's a much different style of boxing, obviously. When you made that shift, do you feel like you were more tailor made and enjoy going the pro route in that style more than amateur, or how was that transition for you?
I was probably a typical amateur, as in my style. I was a very good mover.
Yeah.
Technically, was always my like that was my 5 star thing. I lacked a bit of power, so that was always something I had to improve on. But I had that kind of that grit that I love to have a fight. I know how to get in
Mhm.
people's heads. I know how to wind people up through the rounds, and that's what really showed the best. Like 10 rounds suits me, 12 rounds are going to suit me even more
Mhm.
because I take my time, and I think that's what the pro game suited me. And it took a while, but especially with Ricky Hatton behind me, Blaine Eunice, we're going in the right place.
I have to ask you, your nickname, the Gentleman. How did that come to be?
Through school, if I'm honest with you, it
Okay.
was I was always a big kid, and by big, I wasn't even that tall. I know I'm 6'6" now, but I was always like massively fat, and yeah, it was like this boxing kid. I'm from a traveling background, and I think people just expect to kind of be a bit of a bully or something like that. And I was just complete opposite.
Mm.
And everyone used to say, "Why are you boxing? You're too nice to box." And the name just come, the gentleman. So it was like, right, I'm gonna stick that. I couldn't. I'm not really into all the beef and things like that and
Yeah.
trash talk. So I was like, yeah, got to be honest to myself.
When you do, going back to the future aspect, when you talk about your future, 23 years old, obviously you're at cruiserweight right now. Is there any thought you've ever given to possibly going up to heavyweight? Is that even on the table for yourself in the future?
100%.
Okay.
If I was to jump on the scales now, you'd definitely say I'm a heavyweight. I do naturally put on a good bit of weight, so I'm just buying time. If I'm honest with you,
Okay.
hopefully, win as much as I can as a cruiserweight. My goal's always been a British title. If I win more as a cruiser, it'll be unbelievable. But I'm 23. Imagine me in another 5 years, and I think everyone's going to be like, "There's no way this kid made cruiserweight," because I'm ultimately 6'6" and I'm broad. So I feel like there's so much more development. And yeah, definitely before my career's over, I'll be having a crack at the big boys.
All right, so that's actually what I was just going to ask you then. When you talk about that, it sounds more so like it's only a matter of time until you're a heavyweight then?
Yeah, I just I'd be kidding myself if I said I weren't eventually going to be one. But I think I'll be a cruiserweight for another 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
I'm still going to be here for a long time, and even though when the weight gets hard, I'm going to just make sure I get it off. But there's going to come to a point, and it might come sooner. Well, and I think, you know what, I spar heavyweights near enough every week. That's I can never get cruiserweights to spar. Why am I cutting all this weight? Let me stay heavyweight. Let me get strong, and
Mm.
let's campaign with the big dogs.
I kind of like that game plan as well. I know we already talked about a couple of guys. I feel like Jai Patai and Zerto could both make that jump in the future as well. But I feel like the huge thing is that, when you're 23, obviously we see Moses Toma's doing it right now. He's kind of an anomaly in that
Yeah,
sense. But a lot of the time, when you're younger, having those big guys, it's very, very difficult. We saw what happened when Jared Anderson went out there and fought Bocoli. There's a
yep,
big difference between, a 28 plus year old man and about a guy in his early 20s. So when you say, you have that full grown man strength body, if that's 27, 28 years old, is that kind of when you see yourself possibly making that jump then?
yeah. I just think I'd be silly. I'd be lazy if I went to heavyweight now. Although
Agree.
I'm
Yeah.
sparring heavyweights and I'm big enough, that'd just be pure laziness. So I think the blessing I've got is Jai Patai hasn't. Like, I'm 6'6", so I've already got the frame. I've just got to fill it out. So if that takes
Yeah.
me 3 years, if it takes me 2 years or 4 years, when I'm physically big enough to be a heavyweight, I will definitely be doing it. And
All
I
right.
feel like, you know yourself, the power. If I look back at my debut, how I'm hitting people now compared to 4 years ago,
Right.
it's completely different. So it's that same. Add another 4 years, I'm probably going to say the exact same thing again.
All right, let's go back to when you made that pro jump. You signed immediately with Eddie Hearn. I believe there's a little bit of a story behind that too, where you almost offered him and said, "Hey, I want to turn pro. What's the deal?" Can you give us that backstory? What came in about this relationship? How did you form the bond relationship with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom?
Yeah, it was just like I say, I had not a lot of love for amateur boxing, and
Yeah.
it was one of them ones. I was like, I've committed my whole life to this sport, and I haven't earned a pound. If anything, it's cost me a fortune. I've missed every party, every activity a normal teenager
Mhm.
would do. You know what I mean? So for me, I had like a grudge against boxing. I was like, I've got to make this work, because if it
Mhm.
doesn't, I'm not sitting there and saying I've wasted my childhood. So I kind of sat down and I started doing a bit of social media. And every time I was winning national titles, I was being a bit flash. I was selling myself. I was telling people I was going to be the next big thing. And then COVID hit. And like I say, I've got the World Games in my hand. I knew if I'd done well in the World Games, I was going to go to Team GB and then I would have gone to the Olympics. So my path was there. But then when COVID hit and the World Games got cancelled, I was one of, I knew if I didn't keep it going, I would. What's the point? Like, it's kind of like we didn't know if COVID was going to be 3 years, 4 years. We didn't know if the world was going to end. So
Right.
there were so many like uncertainties. So I literally put a picture up of my national title, what I just won as an amateur, and I was like, what to do next? And I put it on my Instagram, and the manager, Sam Jones, don't know if
Mhm.
you know him, he
Yeah,
used to
yeah,
have Joe
Sam.
Joyce, and he basically messaged me, didn't know who he was, and he was like, do not retire. It was like he knew. It was like kind of, I'm a young traveling boy, I'm not
Mhm.
earning money. It's typical for us to just go to work. So he was like, whatever you do, do not retire. I'll get
Mhm.
you a deal. I kind of just thought he was just lying, like didn't really take notice of it. And he said, "Who do you want to sign with?" He said, You've got the pick." And I said, "No, I won't. I won't have the pick." I didn't give myself enough confidence, and yeah, I kind of just wrote it off. And then about 2 weeks later, it was like deal signed. I was like, "What?" I weren't even in contact with him. I went in the gym, and he was like, "Eddie wants you. He's watched your amateur career, and he's excited." And from that moment, that was it. I went back to the gym, cracked on, and had my debut about 3 months later, live on Sky Sports.
So if Sam doesn't come into your life and have the whole interaction there, is there a chance that you're not even boxing today then?
Very, very likely, if I'm honest with you.
Wow.
It's I've kind of been one of them ones. I'm all or nothing, and if I'm going to box, it's got to be at the highest level, because I believe that's where I'm at.
Right.
I don't want to box in no disrespect in an assembly hall and earn zero money, and if anything, cost me money
Hmm.
than to be pro. 'Cause that's not a career, then, in my opinion. That's just a sport. Whereas I'm like a bit more career driven, and I'm like, right, I want to go and earn some money at this game. So
Right.
if the opportunity wasn't to box on a TV, I couldn't tell you. I probably wouldn't. Yeah, I probably wouldn't be boxing today. And it was just one of them ones. As soon as I got the opportunity, I was like, right, this is my path now, and put my head down and let's get to work.
Just curious. Let's say that conversation never happens. You don't get the deal with Eddie Hearn. Boxing's out the window. It's not an option anymore. What are you doing today, do you think?
Most probably a landscaper, gardener, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, completely different. My family own like a gardening company,
Gotcha.
um, selling turf. So it'd probably just be working for the family. Or I love personal training, so I do like fitness. I could have become a personal trainer, but I think I'm I would have been retired for about a year and absolutely regretted it anyways because I'm boxing
Mm,
mad. I do
right.
love boxing inside and out, so it's gave me the life I've got now, and yeah, I'm very very grateful for it.
Absolutely. Well, you get a couple years into your career, and then 2023, 24 year hits for yourself. You end up missing almost an entire year out of the ring with the hand injury. That's got to be difficult. We talk about the patience aspect, and ups and downs happen in boxing as part of the sport. You're young, though. You just want to stay active, get fights underneath your belt, and you have to sit out for almost a year. What was going through your mind at that point in time?
Yeah, it was awful, mate. If I'm honest, but I feel like I had two surgeries.
Hmm.
I had quite a big operation. They actually took a bone out my hip, so it weren't a nice procedure, but
Wow.
I kind of wanted it, and it sounds really mad saying that. And I was depressed with it and things like that, but I wanted it to happen because I felt like my career was going too quick. I was 20 years old and I was already 6 fights as a professional. People are talking about me fighting for titles, and I'm 20. So
Mm,
the year out kind of was a blessing. It let me mature mentally, physically,
mm,
and yeah, when I come back, I felt like a new man. And I had I had a thing in my head that as soon as I come back, I'm going to get straight into big fights, and I basically did that. About a year after the injury, I boxed for the Southern Area title, and then straight after the Southern Area, I boxed for the English title. So I think I showed to people that I weren't here to mess about. And although I've had an injury, I've made up for lost time, and I'm 23 years old and one of the youngest English cruiserweight champions there's been.
I love how you keep talking about the blessing in disguise component. That's part of the thing that so many times is a difficult situation the seasons you're going to go through in life. But in hindsight, they end up becoming very beneficial for yourself. How
Yeah.
long did it take you to start realizing that and say, you know what, some things are not going to go according to my plan, but I'm just going to sit back, trust, and watch what happens?
Yeah, I've always said it. It's God's plan, and I
Hmm.
believe there's always a bigger picture to everything. So I
Right.
think the quicker you realize that, the more grateful you are for life, and you it takes the worry off. I'm a bit of a stress head, and I can stress over anything. But once you take it out of your own hands and you just say, look, this is what's meant to be, and that's what I mean by fighting anybody. Because if the opportunity is given, I won't say no because I believe it's been given for a reason, and maybe the
Mm,
reason's for me to lose, but then that'll lead on to something else. I just believe if you keep positive, train hard, say yes to everything, take every opportunity, then you're going to end up in a good place. And it's worked so far. So thank God for that.
how big has your relationship with God been to help get you to where you're at today?
Yeah, I've always been religious. My family's
Mhm.
very religious, especially my granny.
Mhm.
Um, and my wife, very religious. So it's just always been like, we, I probably didn't follow up what I should have done when I was younger. Like I didn't study enough, but I feel
Right.
like as I've got a tiny bit older, it's just it's what I believe in. It's my faith,
Love it.
and without that, I lack motivation. So I know I need faith as much as the next person. So I feel like it's got me through not dark times because I don't believe I've faced real dark times, but times when things have been uncertain and a few troubles. It's kept me on a straight and narrow. And like I say, I genuinely believe sometimes I don't know how I do certain things, but that's when God does his thing.
Amen, man. I love that. Well, John, I have one final question for you. And it's the question like wrapping up every single interview with, and that's talking about your legacy. Obviously, you still got a long time in the sport. We've already discussed that. But when that day does come, you put down the gloves for good and you move on from the sport of boxing. What do you want your legacy to be for what you have accomplished both inside and outside of that ring?
Truthfully, I want to be known as the gentleman who was fearless, would fight anybody, and he practiced what he preached. He went in there, he trained hard, he dedicated his life, and he gave it his all. And what was meant to be after that was meant to be. But I want to be known as the man who took every fight, was smart, clever, and just a role model for the next generation. I think that's beats money, beats anything materialistic. Do you know what I mean? If I've got people looking up to me and wanting to be like me, then I'm doing something right.
I love that answer, John. Well, John, I appreciate you for taking time to come on today, man. It's been a blessing having you on here. I cannot wait to see what God's got in store for you, man.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate it.
Of course, you're always welcome on, man. God bless.
Thank you, man. God bless you too.
Sounds good. See you, man.
Take care, mate.
I appreciate you guys all for tuning in today on this episode. I'm going to go to a short break right now. It'll be about 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll get right back into it. We will recap what went down this weekend, Jack Catterall-Harlem Eubank fight, and that card. Also, I'll get into a lot of boxing news that happened over the past couple of days. So I'll see you guys very soon. We'll go on a short break, and I'll see you guys at the end of the break. See you guys shortly. going on, everybody? Welcome back to the SchuZ Show. I'm your host, Zach, SchuZ Schumaker. As I said in the beginning, I hope you guys had a blessed weekend, and I hope you guys are having a great Monday to kick off you guys' new week as well. With that being said, though, we've got a lot to get into on today's show. If you guys are tuning in right now, make sure that if there are any comments, any questions, or topics you guys want me to get into on today's show, put them in the chat. I'll make sure they come up on the screen, and we'll get into them on today's show. With that being said, though, on this portion of the show, we're going to get into a fight recap of what went down this weekend. How else do I start this recap off other than with Jack Catterall defeating Catterall-Eubank by technical unanimous decision, 69-65, 69-66 on two of the other cards. All right, let me break this down for you guys. This was a good performance by Jack Catterall overall. He was good. He did his job. He got the fight and the win there. Now, he obviously suffered a gruesome cut there that will probably hold him out of boxing for a little bit of time. But before I give a reaction to his performance and the way he fights in that ring, let me make sure I am very clear on this. He deserves a lot of props and credit for having the determination and the desire to still go out there and try fighting. That cut was brutal. You know, that is one of the top tier type of cuts you'll see in boxing. It was gruesome. The fight had to be stopped. He wanted to continue to fight. He wanted to make sure he kept that fight going. He wanted to keep going out there and fighting, even with that cut on his eyebrow there. So that he deserves massive props for that. Great warrior mentality there, and I think he deserves a lot of respect for that. Let's switch to the other side of things, though. At the very same moment, when we reflect back on this fight, there is a continuous problem when we talk about Jack Catterall. He is a good fighter. He is skilled. He is talented. At the very same time, he is probably one of the most unentertaining, if not the most unentertaining fighter in all the UK and Matchroom Stablehouse right now. And that's a fact. And it's not necessarily something that we can debate about, because time and time again, we look back on, what people think online. And I get that's just a wide observation right there. But most people online do not like watching Jack Catterall. And that's a problem. If it were not for Eddie Hearn being his promoter, I don't think he's anywhere near the position he's at right now. The fact that he has Eddie Hearn as his promoter continues to put himself in massive positions moving forward in his career. And when you have to rely so much upon your promoter to get you in situations like this, that is not a good thing. Him, in and of himself, is not going to allow him to propel into becoming a star in boxing. And that's just a fact. I think Jack Catterall is skilled. I'll say that time and time again. He does have talent. I do not believe he is a world champion caliber fighter, but he's a very good contender. At the very same time, though, him not being entertaining, not wanting to engage, and have essentially the same type of fight over and over and over and over again, that's only going to cause problems for himself. Because a lot of guys, when you talk about up-and-coming prospects that could possibly lead to a massive payday for Jack Catterall, those guys are not going to want to engage and go make a fight with Jack Catterall. And the reason for that is because he does not make for an entertaining fight and does not sell well. The selling portion comes entirely upon the undercard and what Eddie Hearn puts together. And that is a massive problem when you talk about a guy that Eddie Hearn is allowing to continue to headline main event after main event. That's not a good thing. And so for Jack Catterall, him making his debut at 147, he automatically now gets himself placed into position to fight a big fight, if you will say, against a top 5 contender at 147 or still at 140. He said he could still make that weight, so that still is on the table for himself. So what could be next? There's a lot of options here. My biggest thing, though, is who's going to actually want to make that fight with him. 147 is a very open division overall. A lot of things and moving pieces are currently happening, but we have to look at 147 and say, okay, who is actually going to want to take a fight with Jack Catterall? It's not going to be for a big payday, and it's not going to be a very fun fight. That is not a good sign for a lot of fighters out there. And for Catterall-Eubank, listen, this is another guy that, he went into it with an undefeated record. We all knew that was an inflated record. He is a fine fighter if we're talking about overall standards of boxers. He is by no means a contender. He is by no means a top 15 type fighter. He is not one of those type of guys. He's a fine fighter that you can go pay. He has a good name behind him, and with that will lead to some decent sales. But overall, this was not a massive win for Jack Catterall. It was a good performance, not a massive win. Let's head over to Joe Cordina, though. This was a situation where he took care of business. He went against Jared Gonzalez, won by unanimous decision, 190, 99-91, 98-92. Good performance. Not having him be in the ring for a little bit, coming out and having this performance was exactly what Joe Cordina needed. I think he looked very good in that fight. He did his job. So what's next for him? Well, he's got a few options. I believe that with his name, he's going to be able to get himself in position to fight a guy ranked somewhere between number 5 and 10 in one of the ranking bodies. If I were to list a couple guys, I know this name would float around there. Christopher Mufalo, he's number 5 in the WBO out of contenders. That's a guy I could see him fighting with. Because listen, Joe Cordina, this was not a massive win against Jarrett Gonzalez. But what it is a situation where he says, okay, he is a guy that's legit. Joe Cordina's back. He looked good in that ring. So what's next? This is a guy that has a big name. He can sell a good amount of tickets, and that should get him in position to have another decent-sized fight and propel him possibly even to, legitimate world title contention after that. We'll see what ends up unfolding there, but I will say this. Joe Cordina looked very good this weekend. I think he did his job. He handled business, and we'll move on from there. Other notable results from this past weekend, just going to list them off for you guys. At Super Bantamweight, Sky Nicholson, she looked good. Dropped down weight classes, down 1, second round TKO. Incredible. Leo Atang, round 1 TKO. Listen, let me say this real quickly on him. This appears to be the guy that Eddie Hearn is proclaiming to be his next star heavyweight. Only 18 years old. People that were complaining with the opposition of who he faced this past weekend, please stop. I get the opposition was ridiculous. It was a massive talent gap. It was set up for a KO. But make this very clear. He's an 18-year-old heavyweight. You're not going to risk an 18-year-old heavyweight against anybody that's been established in the sport whatsoever. That would be foolish matchmaking if you were Eddie Hearn. There is nothing wrong with what Eddie Hearn did here. I think it's exactly what it needed for Leo Atang. And guess what? He's probably going to have similar fights for the next calendar year. I don't think we're going to see him fight a legitimate opponent for at least another year. He's 18-year-old heavyweight. He's got plenty of time to evolve and grow into who he's going to become. Just enjoy the process. He's young. It's going to take time for him to get to where we know he can be at one day. Cruiserweight Pat Brown defeated Lewis Oakford via first-round TKO. I'm liking what I see more and more from Pat Brown as well. He's been looking quite well. Akeem Fiaz fighting Alex Murphy via unanimous decision. Solid performance there. But in my opinion, the star of the fight, Alex Murphy. Once again, Alex Murphy shows up and fights another legitimate contender on the British scene and goes out there and makes it a very entertaining fight. He had just had another good fun fight against Khalil Majid just a few months ago, about 3 months ago. That was a good fight. This is a guy that I hope stays on the scene. He might not win a lot of fights. He might lose some, but he's always going to bring entertaining fights. Massive props for what we saw from Alex Murphy in this one. And then coming stateside to America, Brian Mendoza came back to the ring for the first time since March 2024 when he lost to Sergey Boachuk and had a 4th-round stoppage win with Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. Good performance overall for him. Good to see him back in the ring. I think it's going to set himself up for another big fight. Once again, a big name. He just needed to get a fight underneath his belt. It appears he is back and boxing again. All right, as I said, any comments or questions or whatever you guys want me to discuss in the remainder of today's show, leave it in the chat. I'm going to go on a short break. If there's anything left in the chat for me to discuss, I'll get into that as well. But to give you guys a preview of what I will be getting into, the Dmitry Bivol or Beterbiev situation. I'll be hopping into some Turkey Al-Sheikh topics in regards to the shrinking ring, supposedly, with Shakur Stevenson, obviously the joke, but also Turkey Al-Sheikh's promotion and why he's good for boxing. I'll also be getting into Bam Rodriguez's announced fight, as well as some other topics such as Ricky Hatton coming out of retirement, Lester Martinez opting out of his fight, and the debate behind Jake Paul's WBA fight ranking. I'll be hopping into all those topics right after this break. I'll see you guys in a couple of minutes, and then we'll hop into those topics. But as I said, any comments or questions or topics to hop into, leave it in the chat. I'll pull up on my screen so you guys can see your guys' chat on the TV show, and we'll get right to it. See you guys in a few minutes. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the SchuZ Show. I'm your host, Zach Schumaker. Hope you guys are all having a great day, as I've said before. With that being said, it's time to get into some boxing topics. First and foremost, there's no other way I could start this topic off other than talking about the Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev situation right now. I'm going to give you guys the facts, the details, what's all been giving out to the public at this point in time. Then I'm going to give you guys my thoughts on what's happened. So let's rewind a few days, and we hear this news. Dmitry Bivol, Artur Beterbiev Trilogy fight for the Ring Magazine Light Heavyweight Championship was on the Riyadh season schedule for November. However, Bivol and Beterbiev both asked Turki-Al-Sheikh to hold the fight in Russia with different organizers, and Turkey gave his blessing. And now it's unclear when the third fight's going to happen. That was concerning in and of itself. Then we remember back in February, the IBA president, Umar Kurmalev, he stated that he would like to stage a trilogy bout between Dmitry Bivol and Artur Beterbiev at the 78,000 capacity Luzikin Stadium in Moscow, Russia. All right, that in and of itself actually is not a bad plan. Having what has been, probably one of the best two fights we've seen, and possibly would be a trilogy that we've seen in this era of boxing, and possibly could go down one of the best of all time. We can talk about just two absolutely skilled first bout Hall of Fame legends. That fight going back to their home country in Russia at a 78,000 capacity stadium, that sounds perfect for the situation. It's the perfect way to cap off what's been a beautiful first two fights. All right, not the worst case scenario. Then Artur Beterbiev comes out and gives his side of the story. Beterbiev says this. He said on Instagram that Dmitry Bivol has delayed the plans for a third fight, and now he has no idea when it's going to happen. He says this directly in the quotes. My opponent said in an interview that he wanted to hold it in late autumn, then at the end of the year, and now it is completely unknown. So, these are very interesting situations now. First and foremost, the fight was going to be made by Turki-Al-Sheikh. And we have to remember, this fight likely does not get made ever if it were not for Turki-Al-Sheikh. These two guys were pitted against each other to go fight each other for so many years in the sport of boxing. Year after year, these two guys were supposed to fight each other. Not until Turki-Al-Sheikh got involved did this fight ever have a chance of getting made. And now we're in a position where these guys are no longer going to have Turki-Al-Sheikh in place. If he's not in place for this fight getting made, it makes the trilogy a lot more up in the air. And so I have to ask this question. Is Dmitry Bivol purposely trying to age out Artur Beterbiev for this trilogy fight? And my answer to that is it does sound like it. I never expected myself to possibly believe that either one of these guys would ever duck the other. These two guys are excellent fighters, have accomplished great things, have fought some of the best guys in the world. But what I will say is that this fight should have happened so many years ago when we talk about these two guys. These have been the two best guys at light heavyweight for so many years. And all that we've seen have happen is that these guys won't fight each other. And it's been upsetting. Every boxing fan knows that we wanted these two guys to fight each other. And the belief has always been that Bivol was aging out Artur Beterbiev. Beterbiev is 6 years older than Dmitry Bivol. When this trilogy happens, if it were to happen next year in 2026, Artur Beterbiev will be 41 years old. Let that sink in for a moment. And we still don't even know when this fight's going to happen. And let's rewind a little bit real quickly. When Artur Beterbiev won the first fight of these two fights so far, it was immediately they needed to go to the rematch. The fight happened in the autumn of last year in 2024, and the rematch was already going to go down in February of 2026 or 2025. Artur Beterbiev decided to say, you know what? I'm older. I'm not even going to take the recovery. I'm just going to hop right back into this fight. He held up to his side of the bargain. Now, all of a sudden, Artur Beterbiev loses the belts. Dmitry Bivol has them once again. And now, all of a sudden, this fight seemingly cannot be made. And that kind of alerts some red flags right there. By no means should this be a situation where we're looking at Dmitry Bivol as the guy who's younger, in his physical prime, and he won't give the fight to the 41-year-old Artur Beterbiev, or soon to be 41-year-old Artur Beterbiev. Absolutely shameless, in my opinion. If you're Dmitry Bivol and you believe you truly are the best, make the fight happen ASAP. There's no reason this fight's not happening by the end of 2025. And listen, I'm even going to go a step further and say this. This was a fight that should have happened earlier on. It should have already happened by now, if not happening in the very near future. That was my plan all along. Get this thing happening because, listen, this is the best fight to make in boxing still. It's two guys that are top 5 fighters in all the world. We want to see this fight happen for the trilogy. Get it over with. The score is 1-1. Make it happen. But there's more big fights to make at light heavyweight. I want to see David Benavidez face the winner of this fight badly. And if this is going to now drag into possibly happening in 2026, when are we going to see David Benavidez get the fight? And at the very same time, if this is a situation where Artur Beterbiev was the one at large issue causing the issues not scheduling this fight right now, then guess what? Bivol would have not vacated the belts. He could have gotten a fight in between. In all clarity right now, it appears as though Artur Beterbiev wants this fight to be made. And then Dmitry Bivol's out here saying, no, I don't want the fight happening. What's the excuse? Dmitry Bivol, you're going to go sit an entire year out of the sport of boxing in your physical prime when there are big fights to be made right now? That's wrong. Artur Beterbiev is clearly ready to go out there and fight. Why are you not ready? And as I said, the reason I can make this statement right now is that if Dmitry Bivol wanted to stay active right now, he could have made different fights. He's already had to vacate the one belt and given it to David Benavidez. And now we have an opportunity where he might even have to vacate another belt from Michael Eifert, who's going to become that champion if he does not fight him. So you're just going to keep sitting out for an entire year plus and not take the Beterbiev fight? Absolutely ridiculous. This trilogy has been phenomenal. I still want to see the trilogy, but the trilogy needs to be done in 2025. If it happens in 2026, oh well, it's fine. It will happen, whatever. But I don't believe it's going to be because of Artur Beterbiev. The reasoning for that is going to be because of Dmitry Bivol trying to age out Artur Beterbiev, and that's ridiculous. And this is a shame because I love Dmitry Bivol. I think he is one of boxing's greatest fighters of this generation. But if you're not going to uphold your word and go out there and give the return to Artur Beterbiev that he deserves and have this trilogy get made, then that's ridiculous. You're the one in your physical prime. You're the one that needs to go make this fight happen ASAP. No reason this fight's not happening by the end of 2025, so that in 2026 we can have a fight with the winner of Bivol-Beterbiev fighting Benavidez or something along those lines. So absolutely ridiculous. Disappointing news as well. Hopefully we do get this fight happening in the future, though. It's now been announced that Jesse Bam Rodriguez will defend his Ring Magazine Junior Bantamweight Championship versus Fernando Puma Martinez in November in Riyadh, Turkey, Al-Sheikh has announced. All right. There's another stipulation to this, though. If Bam first wins this fight against Puma Kafu on July 19th, then the showdown with Martinez will be a Ring, WBA, WBC, and WBO Junior Bantamweight World Title unification, meaning that we will have 4 belts on the line for that fight. I love the idea. Great matchmaking. But can I add one thing? I feel like we've seen this too many times recently. We just saw Caleb Plant and Jamal Charlo supposed to have a big fight with each other, and then there was an upset after they already had that announced. We go back to Times Square card. Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia were supposed to fight each other, and that was already announced. And then what happens? Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder. Then things happen. And we look at this right now. You cannot take Puma Kafu lightly. He went out there and upset Tanaka in a massive upset out there in Japan. He's proven and done this already before. He's already blown up big fights. He's already blown up the opportunity for a world champion. He's upset guys. It's not going to be as easy as people think for Bam Rodriguez. Now, if I were to make my prediction, yes, I still do think Bam Rodriguez does beat Puma Kafu. I think he's one of the best in the world. However, this is not going to be some walk in the park, most likely. This is a world champion. This is a man that has proven himself on international territory before, going out and pulling off an upset. And to be announcing a fight this early on that you're going to be fighting in another unification before you even take care of business on July 19th, that's concerning to me. And the reason it's concerning is because we've already seen the same exact thing happen multiple times in recent history. If I were a fighter right now, I'm not letting any of that information get leaked right now. My mindset's 100% focused on here. If your team is going to go out there and say, okay, if this happens, so on and so forth, we'll make this fight happen, fine. But getting it announced to the public is ridiculous. And I feel like we need to stop this because, listen, there are too many good boxers right now. And if you're going to put yourself in a position against Puma Kafu where you think it's just going to be a walk in the park and you can go announce Puma Martinez fight already, that might be a rude awakening. And we've already seen it happen before. That's my thoughts on that. All right. So I'm going to get into some Turkey Al-Sheikh topics now. And there's 2 different sides of what I'm going to discuss right now. One of which, I'm going to say this one more time. Turkey Al-Sheikh is good for boxing. I'm sick and tired of hearing people try bashing him. Are there things that are bizarre and weird that he does? Absolutely. Is he a perfect man? Without a shadow of a doubt, absolutely not. He definitely has his flaws. Don't get those things twisted. But when we look at the sport of boxing, how could you not say he's good for boxing? Just last week, These are the fights that Turki-Al-Sheikh made. And honestly, how many of these fights get made without him? Maybe one or two of them get made. Most of this does not happen. Brian Norman Jr. fighting Devin Haney. David Benavidez fighting Anthony Yard. Abdullah Mason fighting Sam Noakes. Bam Rodriguez fighting Puma Martinez. Chris Eubank Jr. fighting Connor Benn in the rematch there. These fights are all getting made by Turki-Al-Sheikh right now. And if we're going to keep hating on him, why? There's never any bit of realistic things. And listen, I know a lot of people in the comments are going to go say things like this. Oh, well, you're just going to keep on deriding Turki-Al-Sheikh. Oh, you're just going to keep on loving on him and so much and so forth. What's he doing bad for boxing? They can't seem to ever answer those questions. So many people out there want to go bash Turki-Al-Sheikh and say he's horrible for the sport and then do a bunch of emojis of like the pointing at you and saying you're casual and so on and so forth. But they can't answer the question. What is Turki-Al-Sheikh doing bad for boxing? People said, okay, start making some fights happen in the United States of America. He's doing that. He's doing what people asked for. He's making massive fights that never would have been made without him being involved. And yet people still want to hate on this guy? It's ridiculous. There is nothing to say that this guy is doing bad for the sport of boxing. Nothing. It's outlandish. Absolutely ridiculous. If you think that Turki-Al-Sheikh's doing something bad for boxing, please explain it to me. Please go put that in the comment section. Please actually give a detailed explanation as to why Turki-Al-Sheikh's bad for boxing. All I see him doing is making massive fights, putting together great cards, and people just want to sit out there and complain. Even this other side of the story, which is the one part that I will admit right now, is a little bit weird with the whole Tom and Jerry situation. I feel like it's getting a little bit, it's gone too far. And I know that the whole shrinking the ring for Shakur Stevenson is not accurate. And I also believe that this entire situation is just a way to promote his card upcoming on Saturday at the tennis place. But let's be honest, if you are PBC fans who primarily are the people hating on Turki-Al-Sheikh, you like PBC and you like guys like Tank Davis because of the action that they bring to fights. He's in favor of that as well, and yet people still want to hate on the man. It makes no sense to me. I just want an explanation. Why is Turki-Al-Sheikh bad for boxing? And all I can ever find is no answers in that regard. And it's disappointing because at the end of the day, he is good for boxing. And these announcements I just said, what he's doing for boxing is very, very clear. Lester Martinez is out of his Pro Box TV main event this weekend after suffering migraines. This is now either the third or fourth time in the past year that his fight has been postponed because of migraines. And if we're being honest right now, this is the man that I love. He's an incredible fighter. But if these are going to be continual issues he's going to keep on having in his career, it might be time to put down the gloves. You can't keep putting your opponents in these horrible situations where you opt out of fights right before the fight happens. That's messed up for the sport. If you know there's a legitimate issue and you can't take care of it, you can't keep doing this to people. And so hopefully he figures out either that be medically or whatever it might be, or puts them the gloves until something happens. Because migraines are no joke. I get it. I'm not mad at him for opting out of the fight, but continually doing this over and over again is a problem. Ricky Hassan is coming out of retirement after 13 years to fight Issa El Alda on December 2nd in Dubai, UAE. John was on the show a little bit ago. He talked about how he learned about this announcement on Friday. Listen, I don't like fighters coming back out of retirement. Especially guys, it's been accomplished. If you've done your job in the sport of boxing, you've had your illustrious career, don't come back and put yourself in harm's way. As John did point out, this situation is a little bit different though. As opposed to Manny Pacquiao, what's happening in this fight is two older guys coming out and fighting. Hopefully nobody gets hurt. But still, when you're in your late 40s and you have not fought for 13 years, that is concerning. I'm not a big fan of this stuff happening. I don't know why these guys keep doing this over and over again right now. Just stay out of boxing. You've done your job. This is a brutal sport. Stop coming back. In this situation, as I said, it is a little bit different since both guys are up there in age. But still, why are these guys fighting at this age? Is that really necessary? And the way I want to wrap today's show is this. Due to heavy criticism and outrage from other ranked contenders, the WBA will review Jake Paul's cruiserweight ranking at their upcoming European convention in Madrid, which takes place from July 15th to 18th. All right. This is not shocking. The WBA had to know this was going to happen. When you rank Jake Paul at number 14, I've said it before, I see why they did it. I know why they did it. It makes sense from that standpoint. It's not right. It's not proper. It should not have been done from a old school boxing mindset, and he does not deserve to be a top 15 ranked fighter. What it does for boxing, his brand, his name, his image, and what he brings financially to the sport of boxing, especially the cruiserweight division, this makes sense. I see why they did it. But you knew for a fact, WBA, that this was going to cause criticism. Everybody in the world knew this. Nobody that are true boxing fans wanted us to see Jake Paul he didn't deserve to be in the top 15, and so boxing fans did not want to see that either. When you go out there and you rank Jake Paul number 14 in the WBA, you knew that was going to cause criticism. You knew that was going to be up for debate. Why did you do it then if you're now going to re-look at the situation in Madrid? Makes no sense. If that's your choice that you want to make and you want to go forth with an outlook at saying, you know what, I'm going to put together a situation where we're going to rank him number 14, then stick to it. Don't go out there and change it now. We know what y'all did. Y'all should have made sure you guys thought through the situation before ranking him number 14. That's my personal opinion. If you want to rank him, I see why I understand it, and you deal with that. You deal with the backlash. But don't go switching up now. You made your statement. Keep it there if you really want. If you're going to change it, then guess what? Now you're impacting the bag with Jake Paul, and you're also looking like someone that just had to go change their mind because you got bullied out of it. Neither one's a good look for you. So if you're the WBA, you probably should just keep the ranking there right now unless you move it at the appropriate time in the future. With that being said, though, I appreciate you guys all for tuning in to today's show. I hope you guys have an incredible rest of you guys Monday. May God bless you guys all. I'll be back live tomorrow night on Tuesday, and I'll have a great guest who I will be announcing tomorrow before tomorrow's show. So I appreciate you guys all for tuning in today. Hope you guys have a splendid rest of you guys' Monday. May God bless you guys all. See you guys tomorrow. And with that being said, SchuZ is out. See you guys tomorrow. God bless.